All right, welcome back to the LeaderLink podcast. This is your host, Charles Heasley. And last week we talked about a little bit of a serious issue. When you're a leader and your boss is problematic, how do you work through that? We tried to give you some good tips. And we're going to look at something from a different angle today where let's say you're the boss, you're the leader, and you're wondering, how do we keep our best performers from leaving? This is a question that I get asked quite a bit, especially in industries where there's a lot of competition. Sometimes people leave for better opportunities. Sometimes people leave for better compensation. Uh, there's a lot of reasons people leave, but we'll talk about how do we keep our best people here. Before we get into that, I want to challenge you with an idea, and that is if your employee, whether they're a frontline worker or somebody in the leadership pipeline, if they really do leave for another company, a better opportunity that you can't actually give them at this time, I hope you wish them well. I hope you encourage them on their journey because you never know. This journey could lead right back where maybe that opportunity does become available at your company, or maybe you move companies and they know that you really support them and care about them. So at the end of the day, I hope that if somebody's legitimately leaving for a better opportunity, they're leaving on good terms. I encourage you to wish them well. Okay, but let's look at this from a different angle and let's say, okay, regardless of them leaving for a better opportunity, if they're leaving and it's preventable, they don't have something better on the horizons, it's truly preventable. How do we prevent that? How do we keep them here with us? And so, um, just a couple of ideas. People leave for a lot of reasons. Money, it's cited often as one of the reasons, but the research actually shows that this is a low percentage. I think the last percentage I saw was like 16% actually leave because of money. Um, and the majority of people, and it depends on what research you look at to see the numbers on this, but the majority of people cite either a toxic company culture or basically they didn't feel valued or supported. Sometimes they cite because of their direct supervisor, which, by the way, your direct supervisor represents the culture of the whole organization. So think about that. If you're a leader in any role, the people you lead, you represent the culture of the organization to them. So you have a very big responsibility in that. People can leave because better opportunity. Maybe they get recruited somewhere. Maybe there's something at your company that they want that they can't have. Maybe there's a promotion or a specialized role, but it's just not possible because of maybe stagnation in our company or whatever the purpose may be. They There's a lot of reasons people go, but let's talk about specifically leadership failures or how you as a leader may be able to influence them staying. Um, this first tip is surprisingly simple. A good friend of mine likes to say that common sense isn't common anymore, and I think this is one of those tips that really fits that, and that is that you got to know your people. Fundamentally, as a leader, one of your jobs is to know your people. What do they value? What are they interested in? What matters to them? And the job site, what frustrates them? There's a lot of different things that frustrate people, and it's important to know those things. Maybe we can minimize some of the frustration, maybe not, but at least we know what's going on and we can kind of check in from time to time. Um, know what, not just what frustrates them, but how do we know if they're being challenged? Because at some point, even with complex tasks, people will develop a level of competency. And it is our human nature that once we develop that competency, we might get bored. And so it is important to know what is it that we need to do potentially to help challenge them in the role. Like I said, what are they good at? What do they want to be good at? They're if we don't get to know them and we're essentially leading a stranger, then you know it's going to be hard for us to fill in the gaps on that. Um, I also recommend getting to know your people, get to know them on a personal level. Again, this is it should be common sense, but there's so many leaders who don't feel like they have the time, or maybe they think that's too mushy, or maybe they think the employee doesn't care to share, and maybe that's true. Maybe the employee doesn't care to share, but I think a lot of employees will take notice of the fact that you give a darn about their weekend and their family, and if they have kids and sports and all the things. Okay, so getting to know your people. Here's another tip is when we have a top performer. Think of somebody who is, just executing everything really well. You don't have to tell them what to do. They don't have to come to you with questions. You just know that the the job is going to get done. And a lot of leaders, a lot of bosses rather, have grown up in an environment where they live the mantra: if you're not hearing from me, you're doing fine. And that's problematic. Um, if people are top performers, they need to be hearing from you that they are top performers. And it's not about stroking the ego. It is more so about showing appreciation. Hey, I see that you're putting in this effort. Um, it means something to me. It means something to the company. Great work. Keep it up. It doesn't have to be much more than that. But it's a mistake to leave that top performer alone and just say, oh yeah, they know they're doing a good job because I don't have to get in their hair every day and correct their work or their behavior. Kind of on that line, third tip I would say is if you have a top performer, um, sure, some people will get to a point where they don't feel like they're challenged that much anymore, and in that case, maybe one of the things that we can do to help is discover what we can give them to challenge them a little bit more. But the last thing you would ever want to do is say, okay, this top performer doing a great job. I know I can rely on them. Let me give them this task because I trust them more than all the other people. Oh, and then let me give them this task, and then let me give them this task. Essentially, what we're doing is we're punishing that top performer, and instead of coaching and training the other people on our team. And the danger with that is that this person will likely at some point become fed up with it, especially if you're not showing appreciation, if you're not giving them that positive feedback on a regular basis, and you risk burning them out. You risk them potentially leaving to go somewhere else. Not everyone wants to stay in a performer role. Some people want to become leaders. Some people maybe want to perform, but maybe in a different task or a different department or whatever the case may be. So the fourth tip I would have is try to get to know your people, and this is one of the outcomes of that. Help them determine what they can do in terms of a career path. Okay, here's what realistically my career path might look like, which I'm hoping is realistic. It's not realistic at every company, but I'm hoping it's realistic for this situation and your company, to show them if you do this and this and this, over time, these are the potential opportunities, whether, again, like that's a promotion or going to a different department. But people want to know what is my place here long term. And if they don't know that, then you risk losing them from your organization. Fifth tip, which is really kind of a, putting a bow on everything we've talked about, is that people have a genuine need to feel valued. So this goes in helping them discover a career path. This goes in making sure that you give them positive feedback, even if they're a top performer. This falls in line with getting to know your people. But it is a mistake. I'm not going to say in my opinion, because it is my opinion, but it's backed up by research. It is a mistake to assume that people feel valued. And listen to that again. It is a mistake to assume that people feel valued. If you're not actively showing your appreciation for people, and this doesn't have to be every day, it doesn't even have to be every week necessarily, but depending on the person, because some people are going to want it more than others. Even some people who will say, I don't want feedback, I don't need your appreciation. I would still do it anyway. You may just do it less often and make sure it's not in front of other people. It's a good idea to know how each person wants to be appreciated and feel valued, but don't miss opportunities to do that, because if you want to retain your best people, and again, this is like one of those common sense, it should be common sense, but it's not. If we don't show value and appreciation for the people that we already have, how are we supposed to expect them to want to stay long term, much less want to give the best service to our customers, want to work with our vendors in the best way, want to recruit people to work at this organization? People have to feel valued. All right, so in my opinion, like, how do we keep our best performers? Well, at the end of the day, there are going to be certain things way outside your control. If an opportunity comes up where there really is better money and they need, okay, there's only so much you can do. If there's a role that's not open in your organization and they really want it and something comes open in another company, promoting out is one of the reasons why people leave. Again, I hope you can encourage them through that journey. There are things you will not be able to control, whether it's working hours, whether it's remote work. What you can control as a leader is how you treat them as a leader. And so while all those other circumstances might exist, I hope this podcast has given you some ideas on how to avoid leadership mistakes that could cost you some of your best employees. All right, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next week.